A happy, blessed New Year to you. Can I still claim that on the 12th? Are we too far in? Yeah? I still have a little bit of time? Thank you. So as we venture into this new year, this second Sunday of a new year, and this new decade, let us be a people who set our intention. Let us be a people who set our intention for this day and for this year that is upon us. So if you're comfortable, I invite you to repeat after me. There'll be many opportunities throughout the sermon for this type of call and response. So I invite you to take a deep breath in and exhale out. And I invite you to repeat, I am God's beloved child, deserving love and respect. And God will use me to change the world for good. We are aware in this world in which we live that it is not the way God intended. This kingdom, this realm of God. Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Thomas Friedman, he explains it this way. He says, we all sense it. Something big is going on. You feel it in your workplace. You feel it when you talk to your kids. You can't miss it when you read the newspaper or watch the news. Our lives are being transformed in so many realms all at once, and it is dizzying. So he tells us in his work, thank you for being late, an optimist guide to thriving in the age of accelerations. Our Epiphany worship theme is ready for a change. And this is where I need Pastor John to do his change. And I know as I have been talking about this with Diaconate and the staff, I've heard that change 3 times now. That bit of angst that comes when we talk about change. And yet we know change is happening all around us. And so how do we, as a people of faith, navigate these as we continue co-creating a more just and generous world for ourselves and for the world around us? And Friedman talks about, and so for the next 8 weeks, we're going to talk about how we as a people of faith navigate the changes that are going on. How do we continue being faithful people of God? So we're going to unpack it in 3 different areas. The first is technology. Friedman talks about these 3 areas of acceleration. Technology. Our global village, we know, is a click away. It's in the palm of our hand with our smart devices. We know that there are military personnel in bunkers somewhere undisclosed in the United States who are looking at a screen, and it's not a video game, it's reality. And they are tracking with satellites in space human movements and whereabouts. And that with a click of a mouse and a drone put in a specific place, an assassination can take place. We know about the dehumanizing effects of war. World War I, which was supposed to, was that the one that ended all the wars, right? Yes, at least there was some, you had to look at one another. There was some closeness that happened in that world to remind us that we are all connected one to another. So this technology. Second, acceleration is globalization that reminds us we are all connected to one another. I am because you are because I am. Dr. King, who puts it this way, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. You can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. It's the Ubuntu, right? I am because you are because I am. And yet how have we forgotten this with that drum beating of war with Iran, which is so troubling, right? Wouldn't we want for their children and their women and their men what we want for our own families as well? And how is it that old playbook, a president, and it's happened on both sides of the aisle now, right, who's been impeached, decides to drum up that war talk once again, which makes it so offensive, doesn't it? because we've forgotten that we are belong to one another, and we need to continue paying attention diligently. And then there's third, right, as the accelerations. Just look at the whole continent of Australia. This climate change that's happening, and we may feel that overwhelmed, and I can sense it right now. Stay with me. We're getting to the hope. About where do we even begin? Where do we even start? Clarissa Pinkoli Estes tells us this. Are y'all dusting off your Women Who Run with Wolves copy of your book? Men, y'all need to be reading that too. Oh, let's do that for a book group sometime. Someone write that down to help me remember. She tells us this. Ours is not the task of fixing the entire world all at once, but of stretching out to men the part of the world that is within our reach. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to another soul to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world will help immediately. Let me say that one more time. Any small, calm thing that one soul can do to another soul to assist some portion of this poor, suffering world will help immediately. It is not given to us to know which acts or by whom will cause the critical mass to tip toward an enduring good. So we keep showing up, right? We keep doing those what seemingly small but yet profound acts of goodness for one another. So you ready? I am God's beloved child, deserving love and respect, and God will use me to change the world for good. So then how do we interact, my beloved congregation, in this age of accelerations? Friedman says the way we do that is the necessity of the pause. The necessity of the intentional downshift, the necessity of the slowing down. So this morning we're going to engage in that together, that pause, which allows us to return once again to our core identity. And I need to name how I've wrestled with this, how it seems so oversimplistic, right? We all know we're beloved children of God. Yeah, we live there, right? And yet if we all live there, what a different world it might be. And it's okay if you don't believe that it can be true. We're still holding that truth for one another. And the challenge is before us, in that seemingly simplistic statement that's the core of our identity. I'm God's beloved child. You're God's beloved child. If we're not able to live in that love, it's quite challenging to offer that love to other people. Y'all have heard the saying, hurt people hurt people. Healed people healed people. Folks that know they are loved are able to offer that love in profound, life-giving ways. So we're going to come back to what may seem oversimplistic, and yet let's not get stuck there, because I think that's where we need to live today, in that place of loving ourselves and allowing God to love us. Because we know when we start talking about wars that really are about oil, y'all. Here's another book I hope you're reading, Rachel Maddow's new book, Blow Up. You reading that one? She traces it all the way back to the money and the oil. Read it anyway, it's fantastic, right? I didn't mean to... But just comes back to two people who disagreed somewhere and it got blown out of proportion since then. And y'all, I'm a preacher, right? I know there are a lot of different layers to this. So this is about the pause. This is about us coming back to that core identity. Yet how often do we hear that? When's the last time that you heard that you are so loved, that you are delighted in? That when you walk in the room, someone smiles like this is the best part of their day. Was it Maya Angelou who talked about that's what we need to do with our kids? When they come into the room, we need to light up, not just because that we're so excited to see them. Yet maybe the better question is, how often do you experience that belovedness? How often do you experience that you are loved and cherished within your own soul and in your relationships and communities that you move about throughout your days? So that's why we're going to ground ourselves in that. That's why we're going to drench ourselves in that this morning. We're going to offer that gift to one another where we're going to say, yes, I am God's beloved child because I am so hungry and I yearn to hear that and experience that, to offer myself that gift and offer that to other people. So I invite you to say, I am God's beloved child, deserving love and respect. And God will use me to change the world for good. So Jesus desired to be baptized, and he comes to this mythic, archetypal river. This is the river that was opened for our spiritual ancestors to pass through. This is where the mantle was banged on the ground, and there was water that was given for our spiritual ancestors. And this is the water that Jesus wades into, and John, his cousin, is not too sure he really wants to baptize Jesus. Yet Jesus wants to participate in that. So can you imagine and put on your 3D glasses what the senses would feel like to see this Jesus who gets into this water and he comes out and he's drenched and there's water just flowing off him. And I like to imagine that that's a nice clear type of, I've never been there. Anybody been there? The Jordan River? It's probably a little more mucky, dirty. Yes?
I wonder how that works.
Huh. Very steep to get down.
My son David went down and gathered water. And when I was pregnant with him, my father went down and gathered water for his baptism.
Ah, some rich meaning. Sue is letting us know how steep that is to get into the water. I wonder if they did the buddy system right, where they all linked arms to hold one another. So Jesus gets in this water. And you have your 3D glasses on, right? So he gets out, and can you see? And can you hear? Can you see his gorgeous body, dark-skinned man who's coming out of this water? And then there's this voice. And it's the surround sound. And everyone can hear it. And is it a loud, this is my son, the beloved, with whom I'm well pleased? Or of a whisper, this is my son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased? Does it get everyone's attention? And then there is the dove that comes down. I know y'all didn't mean to ruin it for our children or for you of all, that sometimes doves in those days actually look like a pigeon because they're related. Let's have it be gorgeous, huh? And shiny and sparkly. And with your 3D glasses, because I'm that person in the movie that literally is reaching out for that, so you might not want to sit right next to me because sometimes, yes, but there is this dove that comes down, and it reminds us of the story in Noah after that horrible flood, which I know we have a painting of all the animals for our children, yes, in the nursery, and I never know why we do that in nurseries, because how comforting is that the world was destroyed, but then God comes? That can be a whole sermon of itself. And yet there is this dove that comes, and Jesus hears in this moment an affirmation of his identity. He hears who he is and whose he is. He hears that he is a beloved son of God, and we have this visual image that comes to also remind him about what his legacy will be. He will be about peace. He will participate in that peace with all of us. And so this morning we get to have our yearly return to the river. In a few minutes, if you so choose, you will be invited to come forward, or there's a station in the back to remind yourself of your core identity. Whether you believe it or not, it is true that you are beloved of our God, and God uses you and me to change this world for good. And we are in a time in our lives with all those accelerations and in our world that we are connected supposedly with one another, and yet there's so much brokenness. We are reminded of our need to shower each other and to drench one another in that love that God has for us. And yet here's the thing about identity. It grows and it changes. When we come to worship, one of the reasons why I'm hoping you're noticing the different visual feasts that are here for us, whenever we can engage 2 or more senses, there's the possibility that experience is more memorable and meaningful. So with our 3D glasses on Jesus, right, we can hear it, the auditory, and we can see it. So it goes deeper within us and it becomes embodied. And then as we grow and change, as we understand who we are as a people of faith, we need to realize that it's just the beginning, that baptism. That's what we get to return to, that deep well, to be reminded of our belovedness, yet we're called to live out that identity as a children of God. And it's so needed in the world in which we live, where we're going to continue, y'all. We're going to come back to that identity and double down in that resistance to anything that diminishes that love and that realm of God that we are co-creating together. So I'll end with this. The wonderful mystic Teresa of Avila reminds us. Actually, let's remind one more time. I am God's beloved child, deserving love and respect. And God will use me to change the world for good. And what does that look like? It looks like this. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. No hands but yours, no feet but yours. Yours are the eyes through which Christ's compassion is to look out to the world. Yours are the feet with which Christ is to go about doing good. Yours are the hands with which Christ is to bless all people. So we ask, O God, in and through us, it would be so. Amen.